Hi everyone. My name is Juan Camilo Infante. I run a 360 company in Colombia back since 2014. Well, I really like, I'm an engineer, I'm a photographer as well, and a developer. And I really like how 360 photos and videos can take us to immerse ourselves in new environments. And I was seeing like a decline in sales within my company. So like many people creating similar experiences. I needed a way to create something different. So I started learning Unity like 1.5 years ago. Yeah, and what I realized is that with Unity we have new promising possibilities that we can create. So this is what Unity allows us to create. We can create applications that you can use by moving your hands, or like some camera can recognize movements. For example, you can, if you do like this, you can move a panorama. Sorry. Or if you do something like this, you can go to the next hotspot, to the next place. You can pause or play a video doing this or any kind of gestures. VR, that is what we know. VR with all the specs that these things are capable of. Mixed reality. So we started recently like learning how to develop for the Magic Leap 1 MR headset. Augmented reality experiences. And this last one that is very useful for the real estate market, and it is like a 3D environment where you can interact, you can change the colors of the walls, you can actually walk in the real life and in the real world. You can position elements. And well, when I started, I was actually starting with another game engine that is called Unreal Engine. But I switched to Unity. I liked it better, and there is more documentation about it. Both Unreal Engine and Unity Engine are free. Unreal Engine is totally free, and Unity is free up to certain level of applications that you create. So this is going to be a basic and like really basic tutorial. It is meant for people that maybe heard about Unity but maybe didn't have the chance to try it before. I'm not going into complicated things. And I'm not going, for example, to cover the installation and the setup of Unity. That takes more time. But if you guys are interested, you can always send me an email, and I can send you some tutorials that you guys can use. That's like between 2 and 4 hours of installing things, and yeah, it's a little bit tricky. So this is what you guys need when you want to install Unity. You need Oculus Integration. That is an asset that we will see how to download. You need Unity Hub, that is the Unity installer. You need the Android SDK, Java SDK, and Visual Studio. So let's create this. So when you enter Unity, you have to click here. We are creating a new project. Make sure that it's a 3D project. Let's call it IVRPA workshop. it is sorry. So it takes some time starting, so I wanted to show you like the interface. I know this program can look like a little bit intimidating, so I just wanted to, in other words, like non-technical words, to say what it is. So first, on the in green, we have the project window or project tab. That's basically a place where you can see all the files that you have. It's nothing else than that. Then we have the scene view. The scene view is where we can position elements and create new elements. It's actually our workspace. It's like in Pano2 VR, it's like the skin editor. Then we have the hierarchy. That is where we have all the elements that will be part of our custom application. And the inspector is on the right side. That is just like a properties tab. So when you have any kind of content that you want to create, let's say a 360 photo, in that inspector, you will be able to see all the properties of any element, position, and anything, and any properties of it. And the game view, since this was created to develop games, the game view is actually like a preview window. So everything that you do in Unity, when you hit play in this part, when you hit play here, you will be able to see how your application looks like, and that's the game view. So it's just 5 places that with the time you get used to. So I am back in Unity. I have here, I created here, so any place of Unity here, any parts, you guys can move them as you want, as if it was a web browser. I like having 2 project tabs. If you want to create a new one, you just have to click in a tab and right-click, add tab, and you can create any tab you want. So when we open Unity, we will see in the project tab our scenes folder. I'm going to create other folders that are just like the standard folders that we need. So we will have 5 folders. We need the scenes folder. A scene in Unity is like, when you think about a game, is like a level of a game. In our case, a scene could be thought as one 360 panorama. For example, the kitchen is a scene, the living room is another scene. Then we need another folder that is going to be called textures. Textures are just images. We need another one that is called scripts. That is where all our lines of code will be. Then we need another one that is called 360 videos. And the last one that is called materials. So, I have here 4 360 panoramas that I will import to Unity. So the only thing we have to do is go into the textures folder and drag and drop the files. So now we have them in our, in Unity. And I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to tell them here in the right side, in the Inspector tab, that is the Properties tab, I'm going to tell, there are plenty of ways of importing these 360 images. I'm going to show just one of them that works really good. So in texture type, you will set it as sprite. And here in this part, you will say that the max size is, well, the one you need. In my case, I usually use this one, but for this purpose, I will leave it like this, and hit apply. And now Unity knows that we are having some 360 images, and it can understand them. Next thing is I am going to drag and drop as well my 360 video. So it's a similar procedure. It's just you do it by drag and drop. Okay, now we have our 360 video. Do you guys have any questions so far? Yeah. You can do that as well in Mac. There is no... Yeah, actually, Unity was created for Mac at the beginning, so it's perfectly fine. Okay, so now we... Is there any question? No? Ah, okay. So within Unity, we have something, we have the camera. This is a very important concept. So what you see at the end of creating an app is what the camera within Unity sees. So if you, for example, when we have a headset, what the headset is doing is rotating the position of the camera so that we can look up, down. And we have to make sure that our camera, that our contents are in front of the camera, for example. So now we are going to the materials folder. So material is something, it's just an element that controls how elements will look like on the surface. For example, a material could be like both like the texture of this thing and the color, and that's what we are going to use to display our 360 images. Is a very important concept. And Skybox is like a 360 panorama, is what you can see in the horizon within Unity. So Skybox is a material. Please let me know if this is not clear, but it's... so we need to create that. So let's go to our materials folder, right click, we create a material. Let's call it Skybox. No, no, could be. No, in the scene, the skybox is just the image that you have in the horizon. The scene is all the elements you have in the application in that particular level of the application. So you can have. That's a really good question. I want to make sure that.
So it's a skybox like the universe that the scene lives in.
Yes, is the sky. And the scene is, for example, I have here a scene called sample scene, and let's create a cube. So I have my cube in this sample scene. If I create a new scene, I will create it, I will call this scene 2. So you can see that in scene 2 we have a sphere, and in scene 1 we have a cube. So imagine having a big game or a big application that in scene 1 you have maybe I don't know like what example, but it's like having another project within the same project. Is that more or less clear, or? Yeah. Okay, so we were in materials, so we create a new material. And in the shader part, we have to tell it that it is a skybox. I have worked with several ways of using this. They are called shaders. I'm not going to talk about what a shader is. That's a little bit more complicated. But I like using panoramic. So as soon as you tell the shader that is skybox panoramic, there is a place here for you to send a photo. So this is the place where you have to drag and drop your 360 photo. So, and this is why I like having two project tabs. So on the left side, I have my material, and in the right side, I am going to look for any 360 photo that I want to use. So I will drag and drop this one. So now we have our skybox. Our skybox is this Milky Way photo. Now the question is, and I will delete this cube. Now the question is how can we display this Milky Way picture within Unity? So we have to go to our camera, and we have to add a component that is called Skybox. And this component called Skybox, it has a input place where you can drag and drop. Unity is basically about drag and drop. So here you can drag and drop the material that we just created. Yeah. So this is how you can put it in the engine. Okay. So now we are going to do the same with a similar procedure, but with a 360 video. So I have my 360 video here. I'm going to position my 360 video in the hierarchy so that the engine knows that that it exists and that I can interact with it. I'm going to call it 360 video. No, video 360. And in this part, you have to on the right side on the inspector tab, you have to tell this video player that he should render in by using a render texture. And since we don't have a render texture, we have to create one. So we go to our project tab, and we create a new render texture. I'm calling it I like to call it like the size of the video. And in the size, you have to tell, you have to put it there what the size of your video is. So we are ready here with the render texture. Now, you go back to the video and you drag and drop the render texture to this part. And now, after doing this, we have to create a new Skybox. So we go again to the materials folder and we create a new material. I will call it Video 360. You have to say again that it's a Skybox panoramic. Yeah. And the only thing you have to do is drag and drop the render texture that we just created. So, now that we have our Skybox here in the Scene tab, I'm going to show you how to change the Skybox and how to use the Oculus VR, the Oculus Go controller, and how to export it for Oculus Go. Is there any questions so far?
You seem to drag and drop the texture in twice to two different areas. Is that right? Yeah, once into you have it there already in the Assets 360 videos as the black rectangular on my right-hand side of the screen, and also under it's just your two project files.
This one?
Okay, it appeared to me that you dragged it across into two slots, the same texture, no?
No.
Okay.
Just once.
I guess this is because you've got two views of your project. So you can see two different places, but it's still the same project. And then sometimes you happen to look at the same place in both. So it looks like twice.
Okay, yeah, maybe it could be like that. Sorry for the confusion. So, is it clear how you import the 360 photos and the 360 videos and how to use them as skyboxes? This is like really basic, but this is going to save you a lot of time looking for tutorials in internet that mostly don't exist. So, is it clear? Yeah. Okay.
It's just sorry. Is it just the way you're organizing it, the way you have a separate folder for textures and 360 videos? You just like to know the different media types?
That's a good question. This is usually like the standard layout of any Unity project.
Okay.
So it just helps you having things more organized.
It's a personal choice that's fine. So it doesn't treat the media. You're treating the media differently rather than the program treating the media differently.
No.
Yeah. So you can therefore add a 360 video or a 360 photo as a skybox, and you don't have to treat them as separate.
It is like this is my personal choice, but you do need like usually on forums or anything you will find like the scenes folder is automatically created by Unity. Yeah, this is actually how you will have to almost always store your files. Anyone in internet, like most people, are using the same standards. Usually they use a couple of more folders that I'm not going to use so that we don't get complicated. But in my opinion, it is important to have them like this so that as well to get familiar with the concepts like textures, so it's like just images, because they are textures as well. When you are coding, you are going to change like the texture parameters of different elements. So I do recommend using this kind of folders.
As far as I know, because I've fooled around a little bit with 3D animation, the program sees the different things as different things. So your raw video and your raw picture files, Unity can't display them. It actually just sees them as raw data. And it can't display them until they're put onto what it's calling materials. So that's why you're differentiating about those two. Because a material can have different properties. In this software, you can tell it how to interact with light, if it has like a bump texture, stuff like that, which we don't use when we're doing panoramas, but that's just how the software works. So it won't display your data until it's put onto a texture. And once we create textures, we can tell the software it should put it on a Skybox, which is basically a way of telling the software that it cannot interact with light sources. Because usually in a software like this, a texture is black until a light shines on it. But since we're displaying a 360 sphere that has, it's just a picture, the Skybox actually tells the program to completely bypass all light sources. So that's why you have to do those 3 steps.
Yeah. Yes, even though I think, for example, if I put the Skybox in the scripts folder, it's still going to work. It works. But it doesn't make sense more like having the Skybox in the scripts folder. Okay, so then we are going to the asset store. That is another tab here. And we have to look for one asset that is called Oculus Integration. And you have to download it and import it. It is just easier. This is like a plugin that will make your life easier. So it has inside the Oculus Go 3D model and some examples that are very good to have. It is also true that you can, if you want, you can create a custom-made 3D model of the controller as well. That works perfectly. So we are importing it. While it loads, I want to show you as well a very nice resource that is sorry, I want to say Unity. The key concept here is something that is called Ovr Input. So it is very useful, very useful to know that the topic is called input. Like it doesn't matter if it's a headset or if tomorrow you want to have like a real sensor that controls anything, or Microsoft HoloLens. When you want to integrate a new headset or anything, you have to look for the name of the device and the input. Is like the way to look for that. So for Oculus Go, or for Oculus in general, it is called Ovr Input. So when you type in Google Ovr Input, you will come to this Oculus Go documentation. It's worth reading it, the whole website. And it explains in detail how you can, like all the different ways you have to interact with the Oculus controller. So I'm going to show you how Unity understands the controllers, the Oculus Go controller. So these are the names of for example, if you want to trigger the, now we'll just wait for this. Take some time. Did anyone here use Unity before, or Unreal Engine, or? Okay. Oh, nice. I saw the Unreal icon in your presentation, Thomas. Okay, so we have it. So we are going back to scene. I like having the game view here to the side. So automatically, after we import the Oculus plugin, we have a new folder called Oculus. Inside, well, you don't need all of this. Inside, I only use this VR folder. Here you have examples. It's very useful to take a look in detail at any of these folders. So in the Prefabs folder, Prefab is like a template. So we have templates of the models, of the 3D models of the controller. So I'm going to import one that is called OVR camera rig to the hierarchy. This OVR camera rig has several components, and I'm mostly interested in this one that is called center eye anchor, because this one has a camera. So I can just delete the default camera or disable it. You disable or enable things by always checking this. So let's just delete it. And in this center eye anchor, you have to click on Add Component here in the Inspector tab, and you look for a Skybox. And this is where you will put all the materials that like the Skyboxes that we had. I will create another Skybox. So I call this one Milky Way. I will call this one Theater. And I'm going to put the theater here. Actually, I'm going to create all of them. Okay, so now I have several skyboxes. And if we go back to our center eye anchor that has the camera, I will drag another image. And you see now that in the preview, in the game view, I can see the 360 panorama display in itself. If I drag this to the scene window, I can see it as well here and rotate it. This is very useful. So now let's go back to our Oculus folder, VR, and Prefabs folder. And we will drag and drop the OVR controller prefab. And this one, we have to position inside this element that is called right-hand anchor. What this is actually the 3D model of all of the controllers we have in Oculus. So the Quest is there, the Rift is there, and the VR is there. Automatically, when you hit play or when you export the app, it will recognize which one is the controller that you're using and display only the correct one. When that black window happens, the only way I have found to solve that is starting again. Okay, so now we have the controller. We have our documentation about the Ovr Input, and now we're going to create the script that changes the 360 photo that we're using within the engine. So now we go to our scripts folder. We right-click, and we create a new C# script that is, let's call it Panorama Controller. And let's double-click it. It opens Visual Studio or any other kind of editor you have. I recommend this one, but you are free to use Notepad++ or the Text Wrangler, or yeah. So, how many of you have used Pano2VR? Okay, so I'm going to create a new empty game object. This is like creating a container in the Pano2VR skin editor. It's just any element here that doesn't contain anything. But it is important to note that for any piece of code to work, you have to have it in an element that is located in the hierarchy tab. So I'm going to call this Panorama. Usually people tend to call this game manager or player, or, well, let's call it just Panorama object. And here in this object, we will drag and drop our C# script. And now we can see it as a component of this object. So if you double-click it, it will open up a new window in Visual Studio. So now, in Unity, we have mainly two sets of instructions. I'm not going to talk about deep in code, but I'm going to just like say them like in a easy, I'm not going to use the technical word to describe this, but we have two sets of, two pieces of instructions that happen in different moments. So, as soon as you have your app and you hit play, that is the preview, like clicking on play is clicking on preview. As soon as you do this, you have the instructions that come here, they will happen. So it means that they will happen only once. And the instructions you have here in this method, they are constantly happening. Like every frame, it's like constantly happening. So, in this part, we have to create our variables. So I'm going to create a public variable, just to show you something. So I created a public variable called scene. That is, it will get some text from the user. And after I created this, in the inspector, you will be able to see an input text. Here, you will be able to write anything. And this is very powerful because this is how you can interact easily within Unity. For example, like one thing like this, you can let Unity tell the new panorama you want to load. So you want to load the beach one. You can write here the name of the panorama, and in the code you can use the input that the user types and change it. So we have our public string scene, and now I'm going to show you how to get the input from this controller as the keyword as well. So this has to happen in the update method because it's the one that is happening constantly. So you want to constantly be checking if someone pressed the trigger or if someone took an action. Is this clear so far, or is there any question? Yeah? Yes? Which question? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Hi. My background's in programming, but I really don't see why people at this level are having to do this programming. Why is it not on a plate? Why aren't there examples for getting started?
I didn't understand the question. So your question is why in Unity you have to code, or?
Are there any examples that people can download that have this already populated?
Yes. In the Unity documentation website, you can download several examples. Unfortunately, they will be mostly about 3D modeling or games, but you can download them, and there are some tutorials that will explain you in detail how to do this. But yes, it's important some knowledge of programming depending on the level of complexity of the app you want to make. So I have like 10 minutes, right? So I'm going to do something. I'm going to open up a project that already had this script so that we will go faster. And if you guys want, you can give me your email. I can send you guys both the slides and the project so that you can, if you have any question, you can see it or you can write me. Yeah, thanks for reminding me this. So this is like the finished project that I wanted to do, but well, unfortunately, time is not enough. Oh my God. So this is basically the same. I have two scenes. In one scene, I am controlling all the panoramas, and in other scene, I am using the 360 video. So I have already here the OVR camera and the other prefab that I showed you. And I have one element called panorama controller with several scripts. I have one that is called change panorama. And this is going to perform an action if... so when I hit play, it's going to change the skybox depending on the action that I'm taking. So in this case, let's take a look at the code quickly. So I put this if statement. This is very important, and this is how you tell Unity to recognize if someone pressed a key or a trigger or anything. So it's like you type input.getKeyDown, or there are several other ways, but in this case I'm using I'm telling Unity that if someone presses the A key, something is going to happen. So you can also do it with the space or any key you want, or the mouse click. And this is also very important to understand. This is how you can communicate with other game objects that are within Unity. So it's, in this case, I'm going to tell Unity that if someone presses the A key, it is going to look for some element called center eye anchor. That element is this one. Why this is important? Because it's the one that has the camera, which is the element that sees everything that we see in our application. And this one has as well our Skybox as a component. So first, in this part, I'm looking for the element that has the component, and then I'm getting the component. I'm telling it that it is a Skybox type of component, and I'm accessing the material that it has. So actually, this is all the way to get you this thing. And I'm very interested in getting this thing because it's the one that I'm going to change. And I'm going to say that that Skybox is now going to be this one that is called Panorama. And what is Panorama? It's a public material that I created. So if we go to the element that contains our script, and we go to the script, we have something called Panorama. And here you can see there is a place to input some Skybox, so I can change it to this one. So what it makes is that if I press the A key, or I think I changed if I press the space bar, if I hit play and I press the space bar, it will change the Skybox. Sorry? Yes, on the keyboard. Yeah. So there was an error. This is very common. I was trying to hit play on the app without saving the lines of code that I changed. That's pretty common, and that's basic but very important. So, is it clear how you can use the keyboard to change the Skybox? Is it clear so far? Yeah. Now I'm going to the Oculus Go controller. So for this one, we have to type this word, Ovr Input. This is always a must. So Ovr Input.get.Ovr Input. What you change here is, for example, you can say that, let's go back to documentation. So basically, you have a trigger in a button, like when you hit the space bar can be whether pressed or released. But a trigger can be like halfway pressed or released or full pressed. So for the items that are not like either is pressed or released, you have to use something that is called axis. So that's an axis. The other thing is a button, and we have a third one that is the touch. So that is the one that I'm using here. In this case, I'm using the touch to do other instructions. And the primary index trigger is the right-hand index trigger. So I'm telling this that if it detects that someone is pressing the trigger, so the pressure of the trigger is measured from 0 to 1, in a number from 0 to 1, so 0.5 or 1. So if it's more than 0, it means that someone pressed the trigger. And in that case, I want to change the Skybox for the new one. Is that clear? So this is just how you make that. And I was adding a new, in this script, I was adding another piece of code that is just changing the scene to display the scene that has the 360 video. So when we want to change the scene, we have to add this instruction using Unity and engine.scene management. And if it is, I also want to say that if you want to work with video, you have to use Unity engine.video. And that will enable all the possible functions for this. So what this is going to make, let's just copy this. I just added this so that we can, so that if someone presses the A key, we can switch to the next scene that has the 360 video. So here in this part, you see if there is like this circle thing, it means it's loading. So if I hit the spacebar, I change the panorama, but if I hit the A key, it starts the 360 video that is loaded in the next scene. Yeah. So this is a simple way to create interaction with 360 videos and 360 photos. And now let's export this. Is there any questions so far?
We are very close to being out of time. Can you show us how to then get this onto the headset quickly?
Yep. So you go File, Build Settings. It is very important to make sure that the scenes that you created are here. Otherwise, well, it's very important to control that. So when you come here, by default is clicked on here on PC, Mac, and Linux. You have to click Android and click on Switch Platform. That's going to take like 5 minutes. And then you hit the player settings button. And these are the things that you have to change. You have to write here the name of the company. In this case, I put IVRPA and the name of the app. This is very important. And you have to go then to all the other settings tab. And in the package name, you have the name of your company, the name of the app. And I have all of these things in the, like in these slides. It's a lot of small details that it's better that if you want, I can send you. So important is minimum API level. You have to set that to minimum of 19. And there is almost always an error that comes in the build system, which is by default this one, so you have to switch to internal. And you click on build and run. And it exports to the Oculus Go. To export this, you need to install and set up something that is called ODB, but I can send more tutorials about that. That's a little bit tricky. Okay. So this is the way to create that. Do I have 1 minute to show the mirror of the app here, or? It would be nice. It would be nice. Okay.
No other details though, just quick. But we do want to see that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to cancel this. When you have a 360 video in a scene, it takes a lot of time. Bless you. Let's close this thing. So in this quick example, I just exported the app and I made it possible that when I hit this trigger, I could change the Skybox. And if you, I don't know if it exported correctly, but so if I click the trigger, it should change the Skybox. Yeah, it worked. And if I touch, it should change the scene. And yes, so it changed the scene that has the 360 video. And now the 360 video starts. I had also coded like a piece of code that creates that if I trigger, if I use the trigger, I can play or pause the video. So I pause it, I play it. Yeah, pause it or play it. So that's it. I know it was a lot of information. Oh, sorry, but I can send you all these examples, I promise.
Thank you very much. It was quite intense, but fascinating. I'm going to have to watch this video a few times, I think.